What happens when Hollywood's favorite bad boy confronts a live morning talk show panel? Tonight, you're about to witness it. Sara Haines. Alright everyone, we're back. Our next guest needs no introduction. He's the action star, the producer, the man behind some of your favorite films. Please welcome Mark Wahlberg. Audience claps loudly, some whistles. Mark Wahlberg enters wearing a casual suit, waves, and shakes hands with the hosts. Mark Wahlberg, thanks for having me. Whoopi Goldberg, Mark, great to see you. Let's get straight to it. You've been making headlines lately, not just for your films but for your comments on the industry. Let's dive in. Sara Haines, smiling. Yes, Mark, I want to start with your recent interview about Hollywood's treatment of young actors. You said it's a system that often fails them. Can you elaborate? Mark Wahlberg, absolutely. I think a lot of times, people get caught up in the glamour and forget these are human beings with real emotions, real struggles. The system isn't protecting them, and that's a problem. Sara Haines, interrupting, leaning forward. But Mark, some critics have pointed out that you yourself benefited from the system when you were young. Doesn't that make your comments a little hypocritical? Audience murmurs, some nodding in agreement. Mark Wahlberg, calmly. Look, I understand that perspective, Sara, but benefiting from something doesn't mean you can't see its flaws. It's like, just because I've climbed a ladder doesn't mean I don't see it missing a few rungs. Sara Haines, raising an eyebrow. But isn't it true that you've also been involved in some controversies that questioned your own behavior in Hollywood? How do you reconcile that with your criticism of the system? Mark Wahlberg, leaning in slightly, voice firm, I take responsibility for my past. I've grown a lot, and I'm not here to defend mistakes I made. That's different from commenting on systemic issues that continue to harm people today. Joy Behar, chiming in, voice sharp. But Mark, don't you think there's a difference between systemic problems and individual accountability? It seems like sometimes the two get blurred. Mark Wahlberg, exactly, Joy. That's my point. Individual accountability is one thing, and I own mine. Systemic problems are another, and those need to be addressed by everyone collectively. Sara Haines, leaning back, smirking slightly. But Mark, don't you think it's convenient to criticize the system now, while you're on top? Some say it's more of a PR move than genuine concern. Audience gasps softly. Whoopi frowns and shakes her head. Whoopi Goldberg, cutting in firmly, Sara, hold on a second. You're implying his intentions. Mark, do you want to respond? Mark Wahlberg, nodding, measured. I hear what you're saying, Sara. But no, this isn't PR. This is something I genuinely care about. If it looked different in the past, it's because I've grown and learned. I think people should be allowed to evolve. Sara Haines, crossing arms, leaning forward. I'm just saying, evolution doesn't erase past actions. How do you convince the public that your concerns are authentic? Mark Wahlberg, voice rising slightly, tension building. Sara, I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm here to speak my truth. I can't control how people react. What I can do is advocate for positive change now. Audience claps loudly. Some whistle. Camera pans to viewers' expressions. Surprise, excitement, tension. Sunny Hostin, jumping in, firm tone. Mark, let's take a step further. You're talking about protecting young actors, but Hollywood is also facing criticism for gender inequality and pay gaps. Do you think men in positions of power, like yourself, have been part of the problem? Mark Wahlberg, sighs, nods slowly, absolutely, Sunny. I think anyone in power has a responsibility. That includes me. It's on all of us to create a safer, more equitable environment. I can't change the past, but I can use my platform to make things better. Sara Haines, shaking her head, slightly annoyed. But Mark, isn't that just rhetoric? How do we know action will follow your words? Mark Wahlberg, voice firm, direct eye contact with Sara. Sara, with all due respect, I've spent years putting action behind my words. You want specifics? I've funded mentorship programs, advocated for fair contracts, and worked to amplify voices that are usually ignored. Words without action are empty, and I'm trying to do the opposite. Audience murmurs, some nodding, some skeptical. Whoopi Goldberg, leaning back, amused but serious, now, that's interesting. Finally, someone giving examples instead of just talking. But Sara, I see your point. People are always going to question intentions, especially with celebrities. Sara Haines, leaning forward, voice sharper, I'm not questioning intentions, Whoopi. I'm questioning consistency. Mark, do you really think your record aligns with what you're preaching now? Audience reacts with audible tension. Some whisper, this is getting intense. Camera focuses on Mark's expression, calm but with a hint of irritation. Mark Wahlberg, slowly, deliberate tone. Sara, it's easy to judge from the outside. But growth isn't instant. My record isn't perfect, I admit that. But I've taken concrete steps to make a difference. That's what matters. Sara Haines, leaning back, smirking slightly, voice provocative, concrete steps, huh? That sounds nice, but some critics say Hollywood doesn't need speeches or programs, it needs accountability. Can you provide that? Mark Wahlberg, leaning forward, intensity rising, audience leaning in. Sara, accountability is exactly what I'm advocating for. But it's not just about me. It's about the whole industry taking responsibility for its actions and fixing systemic issues. I can't do it alone, but I can start the conversation. Isn't that what you do on this show? Audience claps, murmurs of agreement. Camera zooms on Sara, slightly flustered but trying to regain composure. Whoopi chuckles softly. Whoopi Goldberg, voice firm, teasingly. Well, Mark, I think you just shut down Sara for a moment. Audience, what do you think? Should we give him a round of applause? Audience erupts, clapping and cheering. Sara smirks, adjusting her notes, clearly plotting her next move. Sara Haines, leaning in, softer but challenging. All right, Mark, you've made your point. But let's see if you can handle the next question. One that hits closer to personal choices and behavior on set. Are you ready? Mark nods, composed. Audience quiets down, tension thickening. The stage is set for the next round of fiery discussion. About being perfect, it's about guiding others to avoid the same mistakes. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Sara Haines, leaning back, arms crossed. So you admit past mistakes but expect people to trust your present words? That's a big leap, Mark. Mark Wahlberg, leaning in, calm but assertive. Sara, people are allowed to evolve. If someone shows consistent effort to improve, shouldn't we acknowledge that instead of holding them hostage to the past? Audience claps, some nod in agreement. Whoopi chuckles softly. Whoopi Goldberg, teasingly. Well, Mark, I think you just shut down Sara Haines again. Audience, are you seeing this? He's schooling her on live TV. Audience laughter and clapping. Sara rolls her eyes but tries to regain composure. Sara Haines, smirking, voice playful but pointed. All right, Mark, maybe you're schooling me, but let's switch gears. Let's talk money. You've made hundreds of millions in Hollywood. Do you feel a responsibility to use your wealth to change the culture, not just talk about it? Mark Wahlberg, nodding, firm, absolutely. I fund programs, mentorship initiatives, and charities that focus on young actors and crew members. I can't fix the entire industry, but I can create opportunities for people to thrive in a safe, respectful environment. Sunny Hostin, jumping in, firm. But Mark, do you think Hollywood really wants change, or is it more comfortable maintaining the status quo? Mark Wahlberg, leaning forward, intense. Sunny, that's exactly why people like me need to speak up. Change isn't easy, and yes, some will resist. But if nobody tries, nothing will change. It's not about comfort, it's about doing what's right. Asterisk, audience claps, some shouting, yeah. And finally, Sara Haines, laughing nervously, leaning back. Mark, you're passionate, I'll give you that. But passion doesn't erase past actions. People are going to question you no matter what. Mark Wahlberg, voice rising slightly, firm but respectful. Sara, I get that. And I respect questions. But I also respect the truth. I've taken steps to do better, and that's what matters more than rumors or assumptions. Audience erupts in applause. Whoopi leans back, smiling. Whoopi Goldberg, grinning, "All right everyone, that's some real talk right there." Mark Wahlberg, "You're making headlines not just for your movies but for your honesty on this panel." Audience, "You're loving this tension, I can tell." Audience cheers loudly, some standing, camera pans over the crowd. Sara Haines, smiling, trying to regain control. "Okay Mark, you've made your point, but we're not done yet. Let's see if you can handle the next round." Sara Haines, leaning in, voice sharper, "Mark, let's get personal for a moment. There have been reports about your relationships with co-stars, some saying you can be intimidating, even aggressive at times. How do you respond to that?" Audience murmurs, some gasps. Camera zooms in on Mark's composed but focused expression. Mark Wahlberg, taking a deep breath, steady voice, "Sara, I'm aware of the rumors, and I won't shy away from accountability. In the past, I may have been too intense on set. I've learned to channel that energy positively. I'm not perfect, but I've changed my approach, and my colleagues will tell you that." Sara Haines, raising an eyebrow, smirk on her face, "Change is one thing, Mark, but perception is another. Some people still say you intimidate those around you. How do you reconcile the perception versus the reality?" Mark Wahlberg, voice firm, deliberate, "Perception is shaped by stories and headlines. Reality is shaped by actions and consistency. I can't control what people assume, but I can control how I treat people every day. And that's what counts." Audience murmurs, some nodding. Whoopi Goldberg leans back, amused but attentive. Joy Behar, cutting in, skeptical, "Mark, let me ask you this. Do you feel the industry has changed enough to support people who make mistakes but want to evolve?" Mark Wahlberg, leaning forward, intensity rising, "Joy, the industry has changed, but not enough. That's why voices like mine matter. We have to encourage growth, accountability, and mentorship. People shouldn't be permanently punished for past mistakes if they show real effort to improve." Sara Haines, smirking, leaning closer, voice provocative, "But Mark, what about the people you've hurt along the way? Words and actions are two different things. How do you make amends?" Audience reacts audibly, some murmuring, "Wow." Camera pans over the crowd, tension thick. Mark Wahlberg, voice steady, direct, "Sara, I can't rewrite the past. I can only acknowledge it and make sure it doesn't happen again. I've apologized when necessary and worked to create safer environments moving forward. That's the best I can do, and that's what I focus on." Sara Haines, raising her eyebrows, challenging, "So you expect people to forgive and forget?" Mark Wahlberg, leaning in, firm but calm, "Not forget. Respect the effort to grow. Forgiveness is personal, and it's not guaranteed. But change is visible, and that's what people should notice." Audience claps, some standing, murmuring approval. Whoopi Goldberg smirks knowingly. Whoopi Goldberg, grinning, teasingly, "Well Mark, you're schooling Sara again." Audience, "Are we seeing this? The guy is standing his ground on live TV." Asterisk, audience laughs and cheers, some shouting, "Yes." And "Tell her." Sara Haines, rolling her eyes, voice playful but pointed, "All right, Mark, you're clearly passionate. But let's switch gears again. Your films often glorify tough, aggressive characters. Some critics say that might influence young actors to act similarly. Do you see a conflict there?" Mark Wahlberg, nodding slowly, measured, "I understand the concern. But my characters are fictional. I separate the role from reality. On set, I make sure the environment is professional, respectful, and safe. The difference between acting and real life is something I take seriously." Sunny Hostin, cutting in, firm, "But Mark, some say your off-screen behavior reinforces that aggression. How do you respond?" Mark Wahlberg, leaning forward, intensity rising, voice calm but assertive, "Sunny, that's perception again. My responsibility is to act respectfully in real life. My past mistakes were real, yes, but I've corrected my behavior. I can't control public assumptions, only my actions. That's my focus. Audience reacts with loud applause, some whistling, camera pans over excited viewers. Sara Haines, smirking, leaning back slightly, voice teasing but sharp. Mark, you're clearly very confident in your growth. But not everyone will buy it. Some people are waiting for you to slip. Mark Wahlberg, leaning in, calm but pointed. Sara, that's their choice. I'm not here to win everyone over. I'm here to speak truth, take responsibility where it's due, and do my part to make change. That's the real story. Audience erupts, clapping and cheering. Whoopi Goldberg leans back, amused. Whoopi Goldberg, grinning, voice playful. Audience, did you just see that? Mark Wahlberg just owned the room. Sara, you've been schooled again. And that's why we love live talk shows. Real tension, real conversation, and real truth. Sara Haines, leaning forward, Mark exasperated. All right, you've made your point. But we're not done yet. There's one more topic that's going to get everyone talking. Audience leans in, whispers of excitement, tension palpable. Camera zooms on Mark, calm but ready. Sara Haines, leaning back, voice calmer but still pointed. All right, Mark, we've covered quite a bit today. Your past mistakes, the rumors, your behavior on set, and even your efforts to change Hollywood. But the big question now, after all this, do you feel people are truly listening? Audience murmurs, leaning in. Some claps, some tense silence. Camera focuses on Mark, composed and thoughtful. Mark Wahlberg, calmly, deliberate. I think some people are. Not everyone, and that's okay. You can't control everyone's opinion. All you can do is take responsibility, lead by example, and continue to speak honestly. If even one person in this industry is inspired to do better because of that, it's worth it. Joy Behar, nodding, soft smile. That's fair, Mark. I think that's a message a lot of people needed to hear. Growth isn't perfect, but it's real. Sara Haines, sighing, smirking slightly. I guess you've got your point across. But don't think this will end the scrutiny. Hollywood will keep watching, and so will the public. Mark Wahlberg, leaning forward, voice firm but respectful. I get it, Sara. I'm not here to silence critics. I'm here to prove through my actions that change is possible. Scrutiny comes with responsibility, and I accept that. Audience claps, some standing, others shouting, finally. Camera pans over the crowd's energetic reactions. Whoopi Goldberg, grinning, voice playful. Audience, give it up one more time for Mark Wahlberg. You see why we love live talk shows. Raw, real, and unfiltered. And Sara, well, you brought the heat too. That's what makes this panel so exciting. Audience erupts in cheers, some laughing, some clapping enthusiastically. Camera pans to close-ups of audience members nodding, whispering, and reacting. Sunny Hostin, voice serious, leaning in, and the reactions aren't just in this studio. Social media is already buzzing. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, clips of this debate are trending. People are taking sides, debating who handled the questions better, and sharing their opinions widely. Sara Haines, leaning forward, voice playful, teasing Mark slightly. So Mark, you're officially the talk of the internet today. Congratulations on that. Mark Wahlberg, smiling, relax now, I'll take it. I just hope the conversation leads to positive change, not just headlines. That's the ultimate goal. Asterisk, audience applauds again, some clapping and shouting, yes, exactly. Whoopi Goldberg, grinning, turning to camera, and that's the power of a live talk show, real tension, real debate, and real conversation. Audience, you got to see it all unfold live. Sara Haines, smiling, nodding, we may have disagreed, argued, and pushed buttons, but that's the point. Real discussions, real voices, and sometimes tough truths come out when you least expect it. Mark Wahlberg, leaning back, composed, voice calm, exactly. And if people take even one lesson from this, accountability, growth, responsibility, then it's been worth it. Asterisk, audience claps loudly, some rising to their feet. Camera pans to audience members filming reactions, some whispering, "This is intense," and "Mark shut her down." Whoopi Goldberg, smiling, turning to the panel. "All right everyone, that's it for today. But you know what? The conversation doesn't stop here. Social media is going wild. People sharing clips, debating, commenting. The talk show buzz continues online." Sunny Hostin, nodding, serious, "Exactly. Audience, your opinions matter too. Share your thoughts online, keep the conversation going. Let's see what people are really saying about today's debate." Sara Haines, playful, teasing Mark one last time. "Mark, consider yourself the most talked about guest this week. I guess that's a win in its own way." Mark Wahlberg, smiling, nodding, "I'll take it. And thanks to everyone for listening, questioning, and engaging. That's what makes this show great." Audience cheers. Applause rises. Camera pans across the crowd one last time. Whoopi Goldberg, turning to camera, final words, "And to all of you watching at home, what do you think about today's heated debate? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Echo Scoop for more real talk show stories. This is where the drama, tension, and truth come alive." Audience claps, cheers, some waving. Camera fades slightly on Mark smiling and nodding, panel exchanging quick smiles and glances.